Hi, everybody, and welcome to Observing with Webb, where a high school astronomy teacher tells you what you're looking at, why it's so cool, and what you should check out later this month at night. Welcome to April and May of 2019. Why April and May of 2019? Well, two reasons. One, super busy around here getting the planetarium shows together, which I'll talk about. And also, there's not too much going on, so it kind of just makes sense to smash them all into one show that you can reference for the entire 2 months. But yeah, so don't forget to check out my Podbean page. You can also get this on Stitcher and iTunes. You can also, you're watching this on my YouTube channel, but also I have a Twitter feed at Mr. Webb PV. So check that out. April and May are shaping up to be warmer, but they do have shorter nights, which makes it a great month for catching up on your constellations and checking out the moon getting close to the major planets, as well as a Lyrid meteor shower and probably some pretty sweet rocket launches, weather depending. And I'll talk about one of them in the show. So, well, let's start off with some announcements. First off, I want to thank everybody who came out for the March 27th Spring Star Party. We had about 100 people come in. We did two Star Party shows, two Night Sky shows. It was a great time. We got some donations. The Astronomy Club was very happy. Thank you. Now, on April 17th of this month, we're going to be showing man's first step onto the moon. And this was created by Jenks Public Schools. A friend of mine out in the Midwest made this with some of his students. It's very well made. It shows what happened about 50 years ago, which we're celebrating the 50-year anniversary of, when we landed on the moon. You know, how did they do it? What did it look like? They actually have real footage of the moon from the moon landings. Just really, really cool stuff. I'm going to have a show at 6 and 6:30, $5 to get in. I'm going to have some tickets online. You can check that out. Also, that same day, there's going to be a rocket launch, which I'll talk about later, but there's going to be a rocket launch from Wallops Island. Now, we can't see it with our eyes at Pequot Valley, but we can do a live stream, and I'm going to do an extra show along with that about my visit to Wallops Island with NASA Social, where I got a behind-the-scenes look. So you can check that out, April 17th, and I'll have more info in, the details of the show here. Also, April 18th is an a cappella concert with the choir, an a cappella group in our school. Mr. Bankert's been working on that. I'll have some more information later. Also, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Dome Fest. Our students, I have a whole class of students making planetarium shows. It has been a circus of getting everything together, but May 4th is when they're giving their shows the world premiere. They are showing them off to everybody. It will all be free from 2 to 10 p.m. that day, and you can come by. Donations are really encouraged and accepted, but they've really worked hard, and I'd like to get the Astronomy Club some money to do really cool events, and also have a little reward for our students for all of their hard work. So May the 4th, I'll have more details again in the comments or the details, description, whatever. It'll be around. You can also find all the information for this. The PV Planetarium is now, well, it's been on Facebook for a while, but it's also on Twitter at Planetarium PV and on Instagram, PV Planetarium. Sorry for that switch, but it's what happens. But check those out. That's where all the information will be. But anyway, announcements aside, let's start talking about some of the planets. Okay, let's start off with Mars, okay? Now, we're at the beginning of April here, and it's looking really nice because you've got Taurus here. You can probably find that. Mars is here, and actually it's right in between. Mars is right in between the Pleiades and Taurus there, which should make a really cool picture if you have a good camera. And then what happens with Mars for the rest of the month? Mars is pretty much, well, it is our only sunset planet to see. Now, what happens as we go by? Well, what happens is Mars will actually pass through Taurus, pass up by the Pleiades, and this is the same time of night every night, and it goes high above Taurus, And by the end of April, it's toward the top, but it's still visible. And it's always visible until about 10:30 at night. It's just that the sunset gets later and later, so you have less and less time to see it. And then when we get into May, you notice that it starts getting into Gemini. And by May 31st, ooh, it is very low in the sky. I got to put sunset down there. It only gets dark around 9 o'clock. Sunsets at around, well, actually, sorry. It gets dark around 9 o'clock, and Mars set is around 10:30. So by the end of May, you're not going to really be able to see Mars all that easily. But it's out there. Check it out now while you can. In fact, I would highly recommend going out in the beginning of April when it's between the Pleiades and Taurus. But that is Mars. Now, if you take a look at the night sky, let's go back to April. Whoops. The beginning of April. And we look at the entire sky, we don't really see any planets. Now, however, Jupiter will be the next one to rise, okay? So what's going on? Jupiter, at least at the beginning, in April, Jupiter will rise at about, there it is, about 2 a.m., and that is hanging out in between Scorpius and Sagittarius. And, oh, look, there's Saturn. Saturn is rising around, I believe, 3:30 in the morning. And in the beginning of April, oh, there's Venus. You can kind of see it there. I know Mercury and the Moon are down there somewhere, but they're really hard to see. Mercury, don't even look for it these 2 months. Not really worth it. But here's what I want to do. I want to show you these morning planets, Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter throughout the month, okay? So if we go to, let's make it fairly early. Let's go to 6 a.m. and let's go through the month. Now you notice you should be able to see Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter up there. Now throughout the month, Saturn and Jupiter actually tend to go further and further away from Venus. So mid-month they're further apart, and even further by the end of April. And then, oh, they're getting even further away. I got to zoom back out a bit, okay? And let's go a little bit earlier in the morning. Let's go 5:30 because the sun's rising earlier and earlier. As May goes by, they keep getting further and further apart, okay? Until the end of May, when Jupiter is pretty much on the opposite side. Saturn's right still above Sagittarius, and Venus is in the east. Now, so in general, though, let's go to, I don't know, April 30th. Basically what we've got going on here, now Venus is usually the brightest star that you can see. It's getting harder and harder to see. You noticed it was getting closer to the sun, and the sun's rising earlier, but you still should be able to find it for the hour before sunrise. You should be able to see that. Saturn and Jupiter, like I said, are over here. They actually are getting a little bit, I believe, further apart as the month goes by. Yep, they get a little bit further apart. But they're up there pretty much in the south-southwest. You can see them in the morning. And Jupiter actually turns into one of those throughout the night planets by the end of May. In fact, if we go to June 1st, you notice that Jupiter will actually rise at about 10 o'clock at the end of May. So Jupiter's now getting into the throughout the night kind of planet, with Saturn lagging about an hour or so behind that. All right, so what is the moon doing for April and May? Okay, well, I'm just going to put all the dates up here just to show you what the dates are. But basically what you're looking at is the new moon is within the first week, which means the first week of the month, both months, April and May, are good weeks for if you're looking at deep sky objects or you want really dark skies and bright stars. The first week or two is really your best bet for that. The first quarter moon is on the 14th and the 11th of the month. And so mid-month is when pretty much the right half of the moon is lit up, and it's getting a little too bright. But the full moon is on the, let's see, the 19th and the 18th of the month. So they are going to be, when you have the full moon, that's going to be when it's really hard to do any deep sky. But the moon's up there, and you can see the world below you lit up from the moon. And then the last quarter moon will be on the 26th. That means it's actually dark until about midnight when the moon rises and the left half is lit up. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the moon. So check out the beginning of the month for that. And that's when we get into some close encounters, right? So let's start with April 8th and 9th. We have a nice close encounter between the moon and Mars. Now, I have it set at about 8:30. In fact, why don't we just go a little bit later, let's say 9 o'clock. You get a nice view off in the west, a nice view of some really cool stuff. You've got the moon here, a very thin crescent. You've got Mars up here, and it's only about 6 degrees away. But then the Pleiades is off here to the right, and Taurus is off to the left of those. That's going to be really good to look at. I think some people can get some good pictures. It's going to be neat to see. So get out there on April 8th and 9th for Mars and the moon, and Taurus and the Pleiades. Also, Aldebaran right here is a very red star, and you can sort of compare that when you go out to Mars. Mars should be a bit ruddy, not twinkling, whereas Aldebaran will be twinkling because it's a star. But anyway, nothing really happens until April 17th, where we have a rocket launch, which is NG-11, Northrop Grumman 11. It's a mission to resupply the space station. This is very, very similar to what I did last November when I went to Wallops Island. And what they're doing is they're sending up an Antares rocket at about 4:50 in the afternoon. They're sending it up into the sky and trying to reconnect with the space station with a whole bunch of cargo. It's really quite remarkable, and don't forget that we will be showing that in the planetarium when it happens, assuming it happens on the 17th. I can't promise any other day after that, but anyway. So then, again, nothing much really happens until we get to April 22nd, but it's nothing I can really show you up here, except it is the Lyrid meteor shower. Now, meteor showers are, some are good, some are bad. This is not the strongest meteor shower every year, but it's got some out there. And also the moon is going to be a waning gibbous, right? So before it comes out on April 22nd, so before midnight, you'll get the darkest skies, but there won't be as many meteors because the radiant, the area where they appear to be coming from, is over here in Lyra, and it's pretty low in the sky, so you're not going to get as many. What they typically do is, what they typically recommend for the Lyrids is to get out as close to dawn as possible. Okay. Whoops, let's go back a little bit to like 4 a.m., and that's when you're going to see the most meteors. However, the moon is bright, and it puts out light pollution. It's going to be hard to see. So here's what I'll say. It's worth going out for a few minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, and just checking it out. It's not worth packing up and going out camping and camping and tenting and all that. So get out there to see what you see. I fast forwarded us to April 23rd. And what you see here is Jupiter is really close to the moon, or the moon is really close to Jupiter. In fact, in the sky, it'll look more like this, where the moon is only 2 degrees up and to the right of Jupiter. And that is on the morning of the 23rd, or the night of the 22nd. And then on the next morning, on the 24th, the moon is right in between Jupiter and Saturn. And then on the 25th, the morning of the 25th, the moon will be close to Saturn. In fact, I believe about 3 degrees to the right of Saturn. Now, the cool part here is that if you actually live in Eastern Australia or New Zealand or Western South America, there we go. Let's see if we can find the moon. Ah, there it is. And put some good labels on there. What you'll notice is that you can actually watch the moon occult or pass in front of Saturn here. So on April 25th, around 10:30, it's going to start to get interesting if you're in that area. You'll have to look at local times for you. I sort of picked New Zealandish area, although it says Australia. But as time goes forward, let me go forward minute by minute. What's going to happen is Saturn is going to pass or the moon is going to pass right in front of Saturn after 10:30, and then it'll pop out on the other side right around 11:28. So really cool thing, but I don't live there. So if you do see it, I would love to see what you see. So send me a picture. But anyway, for us, on the morning of the 25th, the moon is pretty close to Saturn. Now, if you remember, the moon is now waxing or waning gibbous. It's going to get smaller and smaller, closer to the sun, and then it's going to become a sunset object. And let's take a look at May 7th, and let's look to the west right around sunset. And what we will find is another close encounter between the moon and Mars once again. Except this time, what we're seeing is it's a little bit higher in Taurus. Okay, there we go. It's higher in Taurus. The Pleiades and such are down here. And let's see, the moon is about 4 degrees down and to the left of Mars. And that is on May the 7th. Now, the moon is pretty much the only thing else that we're going to be paying attention to, but you don't really see any other things that the moon is getting close to. So let's jump ahead 2 weeks to May 20th. All right, so on the morning of the 20th, the moon will be just to the right of Jupiter by about 5 degrees. And then on the morning of May 21st, the moon will have moved in between Jupiter and Saturn, but closer to Jupiter. And then on the 22nd, it's closer to Saturn. And on the 23rd, it's on the opposite side of Saturn over here. So it just gives you a good 4 mornings to sort of check out the moon being close to some of those other planets. And as far as planets and events and all that stuff goes, that's it for April and May. Really not much going on, but it is a good time to get out there and check everything out, including the constellations.
Are there patterns in our skies? Are patterns only in our eyes?
So I'm not going to go too deep into the constellations since we have 2 months going by, but let's go right into the end of April, beginning of May. If you look toward the south and you look almost perfectly straight up, you should see Leo the Lion up here. Now, Leo the Lion's pretty awesome because it's a backward question mark with a right triangle to the left of that question mark. It's pretty easy to find. It's pretty big. And it's a very definitive shape. And there's really nothing else that looks like it. Now, if you find Leo, you can also find Ursa Major. So what you do is you kind of look above. You see that red? That's the zenith. That's the point straight above you. You kind of turn around, and about the same height is Ursa Major over here, or the Big Dipper. That should be pretty easy to find. 7 very bright stars in the sky. And what you can do is you can follow this arc here and follow that arc to Arcturus, which is the brightest star in Bootes. And then you can follow the arc to Arcturus and speed on to Spica, the brightest star in Virgo constellation. But that's pretty much it for the constellations. Although, if you like to get up in the morning and take a look, there's something I want you to really take a look at out there. Now, if you look pretty much straight up, you're going to find a very bright star called Vega up there. And you see the beautiful parallelogram right next to Vega, which is, all of this is Lyra the Harp. It's just beautiful. But what's more interesting to me, honestly, is the Hercules constellation right nearby. Now, the Keystone asterism right here has a very special thing. If you look just a little, like in between these 2 stars and a little bit more toward the top one, you'll start seeing this faint, ever so faint fuzzy in there. And if you have binoculars or a strong telescope, or even a beginning telescope, you'll be able to see M13, the Hercules cluster, which is a cluster of, I believe, tens of thousands of stars that are all clustered together just on the edge of our galaxy. And it's very high in the sky right now, so you don't get quite as much light pollution interfering with it. But it is up there, and it is really a sight to behold. And yeah, if you also get a chance, you might see some of these summer Messier objects here. It's a good time to see them, although there's some stuff in the atmosphere like moisture trying to get in your way. But anyway, That is pretty much it for April and May. So if I could remind you what to see, I would say the Close Encounters, and also don't forget the Lyrid meteor shower on the 22nd. Come out to the rocket launch for April 17th. And also check out the rocket launch. Just look at NASA TV. And also May the 4th. Come on out and see our students' shows. It's going to be quite a good time. So anyway, that is it for April and May. I wish you very clear, dark skies for those 2 months.